I want to take up in June the 4th, 1918, and this is volume 12. So this is the repetition of the reparations of Jesus. Continue in my usual state, I was saying to my beloved Jesus, do not disdain my prayers. It is your own words that I repeat. It is your own intentions for souls that I want, just as you want them, and I do it with your will. And blessed Jesus said, and I would give you a heading for the next paragraph, and it's the need for reparation from us, because Jesus has done all the reparation. My daughter, when I hear you repeat my words and my prayers, wanting as I want, I feel drawn towards you as though by many magnets. And as I hear you repeat my words, my heart feels many distinct joys, and I can say that it is a feast for me. And while I enjoy, I feel debilitated by the love of your soul, and I do not have the strength to strike the creatures. Now, the first thing you're being told here is that someone who prays in the divine will, repeating Jesus' prayers and reparations, that automatically softens justice. And we need that today, badly. That automatically softens justice. So, I feel in you the same chains that I put on the Father in order to reconcile mankind. Because when he was alive on earth, Jesus was the mediator interceding for us. Ah yes, repeat what I did. Repeat it always. And if you want that your Jesus in the midst of so much bitterness, my book says so many bitternesses, which doesn't make any sense in English, so much bitterness, may find one joy on the part of creatures. Then he added, if you want to be safe, that is spiritually, repair always, and repair together with me. Now he's saying reparation is number one on the agenda. Identify yourself with me so much as to form one single echo of the reparations between me and you. So Jesus is the one who made reparation for the whole human race. We echo and repeat his reparations, and that's what he wants. So wherever there is reparation, the soul is as though under a shelter. Now notice this, if you want to be safe, he's told you reparation puts you under a shelter. She is protected from the cold and from the hail and from everything. He's speaking spiritually, of course. But where there's no reparation, it's like being out in the middle of the street, exposed to lightning, to hail, and to all evils. Times are most sad, and if the circle of reparations does not expand, there is the danger that those who remain uncovered may be struck by lightning and divine justice. Now let's translate that into English for you. Things are really bad in the country and in the world. And Jesus says that if more and more and more of us don't take on the reparation, then people will be struck by divine justice. So if we want to save our people and save our nation, both save them spiritually and save them from the dire chastisements and the one that's upon us, which is the virus, if we want to save them, make reparation. And you just have to repeat Jesus' reparations, but in the divine will, so that it is at the divine level. So you can see the power that's been put into our hands. June the 12th, 1918. By sinning, man comes against divine justice. Finding myself in my usual state, I was saying to my beloved Jesus, how is it possible? You've done everything for us. You've satisfied everything. You've reintegrated the glory of the Father in everything on the part of creatures in such a way as to cover us all with the mantle of love, grace, and of blessing. In spite of this, scourges fall down, almost breaking the mantle of protection with which you covered us. And so Jesus has to explain, how is it that you are redeemed and you can still come under divine justice? Very important. You're not going to fail to put a VIP on it, are you? My daughter, he said, all that you are saying is true. Everything I have done for the creature. In other words, Jesus has completed all redemption. He has made a divine version of each one of us, and so on. Love pushed me so much towards her. That's Psalm 145, verse 17. Psalm 145, verse 17. God only ever acts out of love. So love pushed me so much towards her that in order to be sure of putting her in safety, I wanted to wrap her within my works, as though within a mantle of defence. So in these days of the virus chastisement, we need to remain covered by the blood of the Lamb. It's very important. And don't forget that when the terrible virus of the 10th plague hit Egypt, they were protected by the blood of the Lamb. Okay. But the creature is always ungrateful, and by voluntary sin, now please colour that. Voluntary sin is completely different to involuntary sin or ordinary human defects. By voluntary sin, breaks this mantle of defence. She escapes from underneath my blessings, graces and love, and places herself in the open air, and she's struck by lightning of divine justice. Now, the image that is being used there is that supposing we're all in this house and there's a big storm out there, and you're completely safe in the house, you're protected by the house, but if you go outside under the trees, you could be struck by lightning. But you've taken that decision yourself to go out from the protection of the house into the open air. Because there's lots of trees around the place, you can be struck by lightning. I actually witnessed a terrifying event like that in Africa, where a woman and her child were walking up the avenue towards the school, and the mother was struck dead by lightning. The child survived because there was a thick toweling between the mother and the child, and the toweling saved the child. It was terrifying to see it. We could see it, but we couldn't do anything about it. So that's the image that's being used here. You're out in the open, therefore unprotected, and therefore you can be struck by lightning. He said, I am not the one who strikes man. That's terribly important. He himself, by sinning, comes against divine justice to receive its blows. So pray for the blindness of humanity. So I want to give you Matthew 11:29 and Matthew 13:15. The blindness of humanity. I can also give you John 9:41 and the verses following it. Now, I've said to you before that sin goes up from the earth like a fountain. It reaches the heavens. Sin cannot enter the heavens. Nothing unholy or unworthy can enter the presence of God. So what I say is that there's a post office up there that somebody stamps return to sender on it. So the sin goes up and it's sent right back in chastisements. And that's a fountain. But it's a fountain created by us. And we even use this language in our everyday speech. We say that person is his own worst enemy. In other words, they're the source of their problems. And that's what Jesus is saying here. That if you strike justice, of course you will get it. Now, the other image I would give you of striking justice is that if you touch a strong electrical wire, you get a strong reaction from that because your body has touched the electric current. So he's saying that if you put yourself in the position where you actually are striking justice, you'll get the brunt of that. But he's also saying there's absolutely no need for us to do it. The decision is on our side. And you need that as an answer to the people who say, how can God be a good God and he strikes us down? How can God be a good God when he sends us this virus to destroy us? When he sends a tsunami, or he sends an earthquake or a volcano or whatever else, we're good at blaming him, We're not good at worshipping him. Okay. So people have to understand that the source of evil is coming from the earth, and if it strikes the divine justice, then the divine justice is that. So June the 14th, 1918, Jesus reproaches Luisa because she doesn't write everything. Now, we've had this many times, haven't we? I don't know when she's going to get the point. So Luisa says, continuing one evening after I had written, my sweet Jesus said, my daughter, every time you write, my love receives one more little outpouring, one more contentment, and I feel more drawn to communicate my graces to you. Know, however, that when you don't write everything, or you pass over my intimacies with you, which is precisely what she wants to pass over. She doesn't want any of us to know the extraordinary relationship she had with God. But the point is, if we don't get that, we just don't get the context. And hearing a story without a context, you just don't get the message. So he said, if you pass over my intimacies with you, over the display of my love, I feel as though betrayed. Because in that display of love, in those intimacies of mine, now circle the in, it's actually in those, that I tried to attract not only you who know me and love me more, but also those who would read about it. Isn't that important? Okay. But also those who would read about my intimacies of love. In other words, he'd create a holy jealousy in us that we would want something of what she had. In order to receive also from them one more love. But if you don't write, I will not have this love, and I remain as though saddened and betrayed. And Luisa said, my Jesus, it takes such an effort to put on paper certain secrets and intimacies with you. It seems as if one wanted to go outside of the order of others. Now, the order of others is what the priests expect, what the church expects, what other saints have written, and so on. And Jesus said, this is the weakness of all good people. You need to add the word people. Who out of humility or out of fear, they deny love to me. We can make all kinds of excuses. My spiritual director doesn't allow it, or whatever it is. And in hiding themselves, they want to hide me. Now, to counteract that, I want to give you Matthew 5:14 to 17. You are the light of the world. This light must shine in the presence of men so that they will give glory to the Father. Now, that is the reason why you allow testimony, because people will hear what God has done in this other life, and therefore they will be drawn into a greater intimacy with God. So this is the weakness of all good people, he said. They want to hide me while they should manifest my love in order to make me loved. And I remain always the Jesus who is betrayed by love. Oh, isn't that sad? Even by good people. So think of all the apostles abandoning Jesus in Gethsemane. They all ran away. They all betrayed love. So on this score, nobody has anything to boast about. So June the 20th, 1918, Jesus, doing the office of priest, consecrates the souls who live in the divine will. Now this is another very important message. VIP. Okay. And here you see him as the high priest, in charge of the church, in charge of the sacraments. Everything belongs to him, and he can do what he wants with the people that he has redeemed. Continuing my usual state, my sweet Jesus made himself seen around me, all full of attention. It seems he was watching me in everything. Psalm 139, he knows my thoughts before I think them, my words before I say them. And as he was doing this, a rope came out from his heart, coming towards my heart. And if I was attentive, the rope would remain fixed in my heart, And Jesus would move this rope and enjoy himself. So this is the connection that she's seeing between the two of them. And then he said, "My daughter, I am all attention for souls. If they reciprocate me, if they pay as much attention to me, the ropes of my love remain fixed in their heart, and I multiply my attentions and I enjoy myself. Otherwise, the ropes remain loose, and my love is rejected and saddened." Then he added, "With one who does my will and lives in the divine will, my love finds no obstruction." So here you're talking about someone living 100% in the divine will. There's no obstruction. "And I love her so much and have so much predilection for her as to reserve to myself alone everything that is needed in her." Now that's Deuteronomy 32:11. The Lord alone is her guide. So I reserve to myself alone everything that's needed for her, both help and spiritual direction, both unexpected aids and unforeseen graces. He wants absolutely everything for himself. Even more, I am jealous that others might do something. In other words, somebody who will give themselves fully to him. He wants the sheer joy of being able to be God for that person, and to be Saviour, and to be Lord, and to be Shepherd, and to be Father, and to be lover, and to be friend, and to be everything. He doesn't get this chance with too many people. I myself want to do everything for her, and I reach so much jealousy of love that if I give to priests the authority to consecrate me in the sacramental hosts so that I may be given to souls, with these souls instead, as they keep repeating the acts in my will, as they resign themselves, as they make the human will go out. Now notice, unless you actually deliberately push the human will out all the time, it'll creep back. As they make the human will go out in order to let the divine will in, I myself reserve to myself the privilege to consecrate these souls. That means as living hosts. And what the priest does over the material piece of bread, I do with them. And not only once, but I do it every time she repeats the acts in my will. Just look at that. That the Lord consecrates us every single time we come to do an act in his divine will. So not only once, but every time she repeats the acts in my will. Like a powerful magnet, she calls me, and I consecrate her for myself like a privileged host, repeating over her the words of consecration. Now, if you want a little thing to meditate on this evening, just take those words. Sit down somewhere where people are going to allow you to have 5 or 10 minutes by yourself. Take those words and say to yourself, he consecrates me every time I come in to operate in the divine will. He is standing over me and he's consecrating me, and he's turning me into a privileged host. He said, I consecrate her for myself like a privileged host, repeating over her the words of consecration. This is my body. This is my blood. Isn't that something? Do we realize what we're reading? And I do this with justice, because this soul, by doing my will, sacrifices herself more than those souls who receive Holy Communion and don't do my will, because they're on a completely different level. These souls empty themselves of themselves. So here you're coming in your nothingness, you see, in order to place me. They give me full dominion. He really is Lord. And if needed, they are ready to suffer any pain in order to do my will. So there's complete commitment to the divine will. And I cannot wait, he said. My love cannot keep from communicating myself to them until when it is convenient for the priest to give them the sacramental host. Isn't that something? The Lord doesn't wait. Love isn't good at waiting, is it? No, love has an instancy about it. Therefore, I do everything by myself. Oh, how many times I communicate myself before the priest feels comfortable to communicate her himself. If it were not so, my love would remain as though hampered and bound in the sacraments. Most people think he is hampered and bound in the sacraments. No, he said, I am free. I have the sacraments inside of my heart. I am the owner of them. And of course, he's the author of them as well. And I can exercise them whenever I want. And while he was saying this, he seemed to go around everywhere to see if there were souls who did his will in order to consecrate them. How beautiful it was to see Jesus going around as though in a hurry, doing the office of, she says priest, we need to add the word high priest. And to hear him repeat the words of the consecration over those souls who did and lived in his will. Oh, blessed are those souls, she said, who by doing his most holy will receive the consecration of Jesus. Now, in our prayer books, we have a long act of consecration to the divine will. I don't know if you like long prayers. I don't. Have you ever heard the story of little Johnny? And every single night he was only 3, and his parents got him to God bless Mummy, God bless Daddy, God bless Auntie, Uncle, the grandparents on both sides, and he went on and on till the little fellow was bored out of his mind. So one day he said to his dad, I'm old enough to say my own prayers. Tonight I'll say my own prayers. So the dad thought, okay, the child must be growing in understanding. So he said, okay, tonight you say your own prayers. But the dad was longer on the planet than the kid was, you see. So he was hovering around when the kid was going to bed and thought he got into bed too quick. And so when he went up and little Johnny was playing on the bed, he said, as a matter of interest, he said, what exactly did you say to God? And the child, with a little glint in his eye, getting full revenge on his dad, said, I said to God what you say to the barman, same again. If the barman can get it, God can get it. I'm illustrating that because you don't actually have to do a long prayer to consecrate yourself to God. Just get down on your knees, put your head on the floor and say, Lord, here I am. Take me. If that comes from the depths of your being, he takes it. Just as if you give a gift to somebody, they take it. It's the same with the Lord. You can have the long prayer if you want to, but it's actually not necessary. What's necessary is that I give the gift of me to him. And in this consecration, he gives the gift of himself to us. It's really incredible. So we consecrate ourselves to him, and he consecrates us. So that's him underlining and signing this contract. Don't do it until you're ready, because empty prayers are terrible. A prayer that only comes from your lips and your heart and your innermost being is not involved, it's not good. It's not good. Wait until you're ready. It doesn't matter if everybody did it 40 years before you. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. When you do it, when you're ready, it's right for you. And don't ask anybody, and don't even tell anybody. And there'll come that just precious moment when you're ready and you say, okay, Lord, here I am. Take me. Okay. So this wonderful consecration goes on between the soul and God. I think that's a most wonderful text. And you need to read it over and over again. And even if you can't grasp it completely, just say, Lord, put it inside of me. I don't care whether I understand it or not. Just let me have it. Just like a child will take a gift from you, regardless of whether they understand it or not. They might only understand it years later. So, July the 2nd, 1918. As the soul abandons herself, see, here we are now actually handing over to the Lord. As the soul abandons herself to Jesus, he abandons himself to the soul. This is a mutual exchange of gifts. When we say, "Here I am," he says, "Here I am." That's why you should wait until your own precious moment. I was saying to my beloved Jesus, "Jesus, I love you, but my love is small. Therefore, I love you in your love to make it great. I want to adore you with your own adorations, pray with your own prayer, thank you with your own thanksgivings." Now, while I was saying this, Jesus said, "My daughter, as you placed your love in mine in order to love me, yours remained fixed in mine. And it became longer and larger within mine, and I felt I was being loved the way I would want the creature to love me. And as you adored in my adoration, prayed in my prayers, thanked in my thanksgiving, these remain fixed in me. And I felt I was being adored, prayed and thanked with my own adorations, prayers and thanksgivings. Ah, my daughter, it takes great abandonment in me." You see, it's not the physical words, it's the actual interior abandonment that is required. "And as the soul abandons herself in me, I abandon myself in her. And filling her with myself, I myself do what she must do for me. You desire it, I do it." You remember that? Okay. "But if she does not abandon herself, then what she does remains fixed in her, not in me. And I feel the operating of the creature is full of imperfections and miseries that can't please me." Okay, so notice the most important thing is the abandonment, the handing over of myself to him. And for that I want to give you John 14, 20 to 23. And the essential line is, "You in me and I in you." Because that's the level of union that's actually required. So, July the 9th, 1918. One who lives in the divine lives within the fount or the source of the love of Jesus. So give yourself a big heading here, love. The summary of the 36 volumes is divine will and love. So, Jesus said to Luisa, "My daughter, I am all love." That's 1 John 4:7 and Psalm 1:4-5, verse 17. I am all love. I'm like a fount which contains nothing other than love. That's extremely important now when you're reading about chastisement, when you're reading about divine justice. I am nothing other than love. So divine justice is love, what you would call a severe love or a severe mercy. Everything that might enter into this fount loses its qualities. So if we're going to enter into this divine love, we've got to let the human stuff go. And it becomes love. So this is why I've been saying to you over the past few years that if we enter into the divine will, or think we are, and we are not being transformed into love, then we're not in the divine will. Because the divine will and love are the same person. And love is very much easier to see because it manifests among ourselves. So he said, in me, justice, wisdom, goodness, strength, everything is nothing other than love. They're simply manifestations of God, and God is love. But who directs this fount, this love, and everything else? My will. My will dominates, rules, and orders. And so all my qualities carry the mark of my volition, the life of my will. And wherever they find my will, they make feast, they kiss each other, and where they don't, they are saddened and they withdraw. So whether you're dealing with divine wisdom, love, mercy, justice, holiness, purity, anything to do with the divine will, that is all part of love. They're all manifestations of love. Now, my daughter, one who lets himself be dominated by my will, so notice he's ruling, and who lives, that's your 24/7/365, lives in my volition, lives within my same fount of love understood. So if we're actually living in the divine will, we're living in love. The two are the same. Being almost inseparable from me. I love the almost because the Lord knows we never make it through all the imperfections. And everything in this person turns into love. So, love becomes the source of all their thoughts. Love becomes the source of all their words. Love is even the very heartbeat that they have. Love is the motivation for all their actions, and love is the motivation for all their steps. It is always daylight for him. Now, daylight in these messages and in the scriptures means you're under the fullness of grace. Okay. And it's if a person moves from my will, it's always nighttime. So the human will is nighttime or darkness, and the divine will is daylight or grace. And all that is human, miseries, passions, weaknesses, they all come out into the field and do their crafting on the person who's outside of the divine will. But the crafting of the human will is a crafting to be wept over, Jesus said. So I want to give you at the side 1 Corinthians 13:13. The greatest of these is love. I want to give you 1 Corinthians 14:1. You must want love more than anything else. And I want to give you Ephesians 3:16-21. You're built on love and you grow to the fullness of love. And therefore you begin to understand something of the height and the depth and the greatness of the love of God. So it's all about love. So July the 12th, 1918, we changed the subject to the effects of the Passion of Jesus. Luisa was praying for a dying soul with a certain fear and anxiety, and then Jesus told her, "My daughter, why do you fear? Don't you know that for each word on my passion, for each thought, for each compassion or sympathy, for each reparation, for each memory of my pains, these are many ways of electricity of communication that open between me and the soul. And therefore, the soul keeps adorning herself with as many varieties and beauties. She has done the hours of the Passion, and I will receive her as the daughter of my passion, clothed with my blood and adorned with my wounds. This flower has grown inside of your heart." So he eventually called her Luisa of the Passion of the Tabernacle. "This flower has grown inside your heart, and I bless it, and I receive it in my heart as a favourite flower." So if we realise that doing the hours of the Passion has this incredible effect, not only of saving a soul for every word that you say, but that you yourself are clothing yourself with the insignia of Christ, and that you are seen in the presence of God as somebody clothed in the passion of Christ, that puts you in a different position when you are interceding for others. So July the 16th, 1918. One who wants to do good to all must live in the will of God. Okay. So this is in this paragraph, the choice is put in front of you. Do you want to plant a tree on the earth or a tree in heaven? The tree on the earth is going to eventually die and disappear. The tree in heaven will last forever. You've got to make a choice yourself. Okay. So we can live for earthly things or for heavenly things. You can live low down, as he says himself, or high up. My daughter, do not remain in yourself. Look at this now. And in your will. That's all. Write the word low stuff beside that. That's all earthly, low stuff. Your own will and your own stuff. But enter into me, that is fusing, and into my will. I am immense. And only one who is immense can multiply acts for as many as he wants. One who is up high, that is living in the divine will, can give light to the bottom. Don't you see the sun? Because it is up high, it is the light of every eye. Even more, each man can have the sun at his disposal if all for himself. On the other hand, the plants, the trees and the rivers and the seas, these are down below. They're not at everyone's disposal. One cannot say of them, as of the sun, if I want, I can make it all mine, even though the others can enjoy it. However, all the low things receive the benefit of the sun. Some the light, some the heat, some the fertility, and some the colour. Now what he's trying to say is, if we operate in the divine will, everybody benefits. If you operate in the human will, maybe one or two do. That's your choice. So he said, I am the eternal light. That's 1 John 1:5. And 2 Timothy 6:16. God lives in unapproachable light. I am at the highest point. That's the omega point, the highest point. And as much higher as I am, so much more do I find myself everywhere and deeper down. So that again is Psalm 139. If I go to the heavens, you are there. If I go into the depths of Sheol, even you are there. Darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day. And I want to give you Acts 17. I think it's verse 20 to 28. So because Jesus is so high, he can give life to everyone. Therefore, he said, I am the life of all. That's John 14:6. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. As if I were only for each one. And so when any of us go into prayer, it is the same as if the Lord is for that person alone. So, if you want to do good to everyone, you have to enter into my immensity. You have to live up high. You've got to live detached from everything and also from yourself. Now there you have it in a nutshell. If you want this, that's the price. So that's like going into a place where they sell cars and they say, well, this is the price, this is what you get. That's where it's at. Or you try and go to buy a house and it's the same thing and they tell you, sorry, but this is the price. I know you like it, but this is what you have to pay. And so we have to decide whether we want God badly enough to pay the price. Sometimes, we don't. We would say it theoretically that we would, but we're not really willing to pay the price. And therefore, when we're not willing to pay the price, we're actually saying in our actions that we don't want it. We'd like it free of charge, yeah. Hand it to me. But he gave you creation for nothing. He gave you redemption for nothing, and he's asking you to participate. And therefore he's treating us as intelligent human beings. And he's also treating us as the speaking creation that speaks on behalf of all the others that can't speak. So it is necessary for us to voice their praise and their thanksgiving to God, hence the rounds. Okay. So if you want to do good to everybody, if you want to enter, therefore you'll have to enter into my immensity, you'll have to live up high, you'll have to live detached from everything, and also from yourself. Otherwise, there will be earth around you. It'll be too low. Then you could only be a plant or a tree, but never a son. That's your Matthew 5:14. Never a son. And instead of giving, you would have to receive, because the tree has to receive life in order to have it. And the good you will do will be so limited that it actually could be numbered. But in the divine will, what you can do cannot be numbered, because it's infinite, perfect, and eternal. So we go into August the 1st, 1918, and we talk about divine pain. Now, we don't like talking about pain at all, human or divine, but you have to if you're coming into this. Luisa said, I go on amidst privations and anxieties, and I often lament to my sweet Jesus. And he came, and drawing close to me, he said, drink from my side. Now that's the open wound in his heart, where blood and water spilled out on Calvary. Luisa said, I drank the most holy blood which came out of the wound of his heart. How happy I was. But Jesus, not content with letting me drink the first time, told me to drink a second time and a third time. I remained amazed at his goodness, and without my asking, that he himself wanted me to drink. Now that's John 7:37-39. If you really want me, come and drink. And if you really do drink, then out of your own heart will flow fountains of living water. I also want to give you Isaiah chapter 12, verse 3, and Isaiah 55:1. Isaiah 12:3 is the well of salvation, and Isaiah 55:1, the invitation to come and drink. Then Jesus added, my daughter, every time you remember that you are without me and you suffer, your heart remains wounded with a divine wound, which, being divine, has the power of being reflected in my heart and of wounding it. This wound is sweet, it is balm to my heart, and I use it to soothe myself from the cruel wounds that creatures give me, of the neglect, of the scorn that they give to me, reaching the point of even forgetting about me, which are more than 50% of the planet is in that position at the moment. So, if the soul feels cold, dry, distracted, and she feels pain from this because of me, she remains wounded and she wounds me. Now that point is extremely important for you and me. The rest of it is Louisa's privation, which is very special, and he tells her it's a divine pain. But he's telling us that if we feel cold spiritually, dry, unable to pray, distracted, and we feel this pain because of Jesus, then we simply enter in and drink from his side. You stop the words and start drinking. That's not bad, is it? What do you do with an infant at the breast when they start crying? You stop the crying by getting them to drink. Isn't that right? That's exactly what he says to us. Put the words aside. It's not the time for words. It's the time for drinking from the fount of life. And again, you don't have to ask him 10 times. Just fuse with him and say, Jesus, I've come to drink. And then you stop the talking. August the 7th, 1918. The consummation of Jesus in the soul. This is another very important one. Louisa was lamenting to Jesus about his privation and was saying to herself, everything's over, what bitter days. My Jesus has eclipsed himself, he has withdrawn from me. How can I continue to live? While I was saying this and other nonsense, and she knows it's nonsense, but it's the expression of her pain, with an intellectual light, and that's wonderful, that's the infused knowledge that came from Jesus, he said, my daughter, my consummation on the cross still continues in souls. Now he's trying to explain more and more to Luisa what in fact is the reason for the privation she's having. When the soul is well disposed and gives me life within herself, I live again in her as if in a new incarnation, as if within my humanity. So 2 Corinthians 5:17 and John 14:23. The flames of my love burn me. I feel the yearnings to attest it to creatures, and I say, see how much I love you. I'm not content with having consumed myself on the cross for love of you, but I want to consume myself for love of you in this soul, who gave me life within herself. And therefore I make the soul feel the consummation of my life within her. In other words, you get a reflection of this in your own experience. The soul feels herself as though in a tight corner. She suffers mortal agonies. No longer feeling the life of her Jesus within her, she feels consumed. As she feels my life missing in her, with which she was accustomed to living, she writhes, she trembles, almost like my humanity on the cross. Now notice the almost. It's a reflection of it. None of us can have the full thing. When my divinity, withdrawing strength from it, allowed it to die. This consummation in the soul is not human, it's fully divine. So this is a person absolutely at the pinnacle of the experience with God. And I feel the satisfaction as if another divine life of mine had consumed itself for love of me. In other words, another Christ had given itself 100%. Now he's describing Luisa very well. He's not describing me very well, but he's describing Luisa very well. I feel the satisfaction as if another divine life of mine had consumed itself for love of me, as in fact it is not her life that was consumed, but mine. So you have to look at all the messages leading up to this, that when we give ourselves completely to him, he gives himself completely to us. So he's reliving his life in and through us, and this life has now reached its consummation, its fullness. In fact, it's not her life that was consumed, but mine, which she can no longer feel, no longer see, but it seems to her that I am dead for her. And I renew the effects of my consummation in souls, and I redouble grace and glory for this soul. Now look what he's doing. He renews the effects of the consummation of his own sacrifice for the rest of us, and he redoubles grace and glory for the soul that allows him to do this through her. I feel the sweet enchantment, the attractions of my humanity, which allowed me to do whatever I wanted. Therefore you too, let me do whatever I want, let me be free, and I will carry out my life in you. Understood? So another day Luisa was lamenting again and was saying to him, how can this be? You've left me. And this time Jesus, serious and imposing, said, quiet, do not speak nonsense, I've not left you. Now there comes a time when even the Lord says, listen, you've said that often enough, do you mind? Cut. I think that's fantastic. I've not left you is Joshua 1:5. I am in the depths of your soul, 1 Corinthians 3:16. And Luke 17:21. The kingdom of God is within you. I'm in the depths of your soul. This is why you don't see me. She's complaining because she doesn't see him outside. And he says, I'm inside. And when you see me, it's because I come to the surface of your soul. Do not get distracted. I want you all intent in me, so that I may keep you for the good of all. So notice that even at this very high level, you can still get distracted. Okay. Now, the next message is a long one, so I'm going to give you your 7-minute break. Is that all right?
Yeah.